few minutes after 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Where else would I be but here with you? DJ Stutz here with Little Hearts Academy and Imperfect Heroes podcast. My podcast that is available now. It's about the Holy Trinity of Holidays. And this is a concept that I learned about several years ago from listening to a personality, I guess. His name is Glenn Beck. And when he mentioned this, I thought, oh, this is ringing true to me. And so it's actually made a lot of changes in the way that I look toward the holidays, the way that I prepare for the holidays. We think about Thanksgiving. We think about, hopefully, there's the family and the feast and all of those lovely things. But when we truly think about Thanksgiving, it's a time of reflection and of looking around us and concentrating on the blessings, the people, and all of the things that really help us in every day in our lives. And they may be such small things and things that we may never even realize that someone else has done on our behalf. And they might not even know who they were going to benefit, but they did something, just a little kindness. That old story about the king who created this brand new highway. And so the day before it officially opened, he invited all of the best people in the town to travel this highway. And they all showed up in their beautiful gowns, and they showed up in their carriages. Some of them were going to run the highway. Some of them were enjoying the scenery and seeing their friends and moving along. Well, as people finished traveling on the highway, the king would talk to them and ask them, how was it, and were there any suggestions, and what were the best parts and the worst parts? And, people were really complaining about this pile of rocks that was in the middle of the road at one point. And they said it made it kind of hard for our carriage to navigate around it. And so he said, oh, okay, well, I'll check that out. Well, there was an old man who came, and he was the last one to finish. And the king went and asked him, how was your journey? How was the highway? And he said, well, sir, I need to talk to you because I found this bag of gold, and it was under this big pile of rocks that was in the middle of the highway. And I was worried that it was going to cause a problem with the travel. So I was moving the rocks over to the side and off the highway. And there's this bag of gold on the inside. So I need your help to so that I can find who this bag of gold truly belongs to so that we can get it back to them. And the king smiled and said, the gold belongs to you. And he said, my goal was to find the person who could best travel the highway. And you were the best because you took the time to make things better for someone else. Well, we run into things like that all the time, where someone has maybe done something to fix something. Maybe it's just picking up trash in a park. Maybe it's slowing down to let someone in, There's all kinds of things that people do to help us on our path, on our own journey in life. And sometimes we'll get to know them and sometimes we won't. But we want to always, always look for those things to be grateful for. And so being grateful takes a preponderance, I guess, of humility. You have to be humble to be able to look around and see all of the things that are done that enhance your life. And there's so many things around us that enhance our lives. It could be neighbors. It could be maybe someone at church. Maybe you just were having a really down day and somebody thought to give you a call or just to give you a hug or a smile. I had this little guy in my class that I teach at school, and he's got a bit of a personality, but gosh, I love this kid. And out of the blue, he'll come up to me and give me the sweetest hug and just say, I love you, Miss DJ. And I'm like, oh, my life is so good right now. I love that. And then when he does it, the funny thing is when he does it, and I'll say, oh, I love hugs. Thank you so much. They make me feel happy. And it's funny how the other kids will pick up on that. And they'll come over and give me a hug and say, I love you, Miss DJ. And it's fun that this little boy will actually go to the other people. So we have like special needs specialists that are in their speech. And we have an OT that sometimes is there. And then sometimes we have a a behavior management person that's in there. And then I have an aide that's in the class with me all the time. And he'll go around to any adults that are in the room. I love you, Miss Jamie, or I love you, Miss Danielle. And it just brightens my day. And how often does something small like that really make a difference for you in your life? And are we humble enough to look at what other people are doing and to really recognize someone's gone out of their way, especially when you notice that within your own family? So think about just within your own relationship as a spouse. Notice when you notice what your spouse has done for you, and you say thank you. You don't take it for granted, and you're looking for things that your spouse is doing for you. So one of my things that I like to do, and I've talked about this a few times through the years, is my joy journal. And I was just in such a sad place at one point in my life, and things were hard. They were just hard, and we were dealing with a lot of things. And someone had told me, you need to take all of these emotions and write them down, and then you'll be able to work through them better. I thought, okay, so I went, bought a black journal for all my sad thoughts, and started writing down all these things. So-and-so did this, and so-and-so did that, and why isn't this working out, and da-da-da-da-da. And I would go on and on. And then I noticed that it wasn't helping me any. I was actually getting worse in my depression and in my anxiety. And so at one point I thought, this just isn't working for me. And so I took all of those pages that I'd written stuff down and tore them out and then started new. And this time I decided I'm only writing the joyful things that happened to me. And so every day I need to write something down that was good about the day. So I start doing that, and I could feel a change coming on me. I'm noticing more of what people were doing and what the goodness was that was around me. And but one day was especially hard. It was just a tough day. It was tough at work. It was tough at home. The commute was bad. Everything was just rough. And so I sat there that evening and I had this journal out thinking about what to write. And I thought, there's nothing good. I have nothing good to write about today. And I sat there pondering things for a little bit, and it wasn't really a voice that you hear, but I'm sure a lot of you have had those feelings when something kind of speaks to you from within. And, I always call that, the Holy Ghost when it's there, the Holy Spirit that comes to us. And it said to me, how dare you? How dare you say that there's nothing good to write about? You have a roof over your head. You've got more than enough clothes, way more shoes than I need, right? I have cars that work and get me to where I need to go. I had a job that I enjoyed doing generally, even though that had been a tough day. I was living in Las Vegas at the time. I had a swimming pool in my backyard for those hot days. There were plenty of things to be joyful about. And so sometimes when we really get down, it's just noticing even those very basic things. I have a washer and dryer, and I no longer have to go to the laundromat. Or I don't have a laundromat or a washer and dryer, but there's a laundromat down the street that I can use. As you look at your life and really look at the things that are happening within you and for you and around you, and maybe it's just a hug from one of your kids. Those are precious. Those are gold in the bank, man, to get those things. So when you really take the time to humble yourself, you're able to see the beauty of the world around you and to accept that beauty with gratitude and with graciousness. So the next one is Christmas, of course, right? And so as we humble ourselves, we are able to accept Christ into our lives. If we are proud and haughty, we're worried about material things, we're worried about how other people look at us, we're worried about that, someone isn't doing enough for us or isn't doing the right thing. The Spirit of Christ cannot dwell within us. That's just not a place where he can be. And so it's when we have that gratitude and that humility that we are able to accept Christ into our life. And then, what does that do for us? As we look at our fellow man very differently when Christ is in our life. If you're not Christian, if you're Jewish, or even if you're atheist, but when you find yourself humble enough to look at the joy that's around you, it changes everything, doesn't it? It changes your whole outlook and your attitude. It changes your ability to help others when you see all that's going on your behalf. And so it's an amazing thing. And then excuse me. And then the third thing of the Trinity is once we've accepted Christ into our life, we are born anew, right? And that rebirth is New Year's. and it's a chance to start over and fresh, and to be someone just a little better than you were, last year, or last month, or last week, or yesterday, or an hour ago. You can always look to be new from this point today. And we know that we all have good intentions and we'll work hard, but some days we just struggle, or we go back to an old habit that wasn't the best thing for us, or we get angrier than we should have. And so the nice thing about this is there's always another minute to get started, to switch it around and say, oh wow, that's not what I meant to be. I'm more angry than I want to be. Is this something that really matters in life? Does it really matter? Or is this something that I'm just angry about because it was inconvenient, or I chose to be offended by something that somebody said or did? And so once you catch yourself with that, then you're able to say, oh, get it turned around and become that better person, that new animal, that new entity that we're working to be. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. Never does. It's not something that's going to happen in just a year. In fact, it's not something that you're going to completely master in a lifetime. But we can work more toward that. And the closer we get toward that, the calmer we are, the happier we are, the less put out we seem to get over silly things. Someone, cut us off or wouldn't let us in. It's like, why wouldn't they do that? It's like, well, you don't know. So there was a time back when we lived, this was many years ago, when we were living in Las Vegas, and our subdivision, now it's all, built up and stuff. But when we first moved there, our subdivision was out kind of in the northern desert and a little isolated. And so there was a road that you would take. It's called Jones, and it would come around and come onto a street called Rancho that came kind of at an angle. And there was just desert on both sides of this road. It's all built up now, but then it wasn't. And I was waiting at the stop sign to turn left, and there's this car, and it goes rushing by, like it went in the dirt, passing everybody up and heading toward that stop sign. And my first thought was, what the heck? That's dangerous. That's crazy. And as they went by, somehow I could just see enough that there was a woman next to the man, and I swear that girl was in labor. It looked like she was. The man looked panicked, and so that really was a changing moment in my life, that sometimes people drive erratically or, unsafely because there was an emergency somewhere. And it's funny how that changed my life, in that when I see someone, not all the time, but I've gotten a lot better at it, and I can say most of the time, that when I see someone that's driving erratically or cutting people off, I can say a prayer in my heart for that person, and pray that they will get to where they need to be safely, and that everything's okay for them. And you have no idea how much that has calmed me down as I'm driving. And I don't get as mad. I feel more compassion for people, and it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing for me, and that they don't know how I'm feeling. It doesn't matter at all to them in their lives as to what my attitude is about their driving, but it does change me, and it helps me to be a better person and a better driver. And so when you really look at some of these things as you're changing and you're growing, and every year as this comes around and we have this holy Trinity of holidays, that it just reminds us of the process of humility and then accepting Christ and then becoming it renewed, that we are able to move forward in our lives. So the podcast has different stories. You just heard one here that is not on the podcast. And so I hope you'll go to the podcast and listen in, and maybe help you consider what you can do to help your children become more, just better people through this process, because the process is truly the same for us as it is for our kids. The difference is we have to set the example and show our children how to move forward, how to be grateful, how to notice, because we're going to model that for them. And they will hear us speak to ourselves out loud. They listen in, and, to say, oh, wow, I hope that person's okay. Or to say, wow, somebody just really did a nice thing for me. Oh, they let me in as I'm driving. Thank you, and you're talking to yourself. Your kids will pick up on that. And doing kindnesses for other people. What a great opportunity this time of year is. And so I hope that you will listen in on the podcast. So until next week, let's find that joy in parenting. Bye-bye.